Have you ever spoken an idea, only to be met with silence? Have you ever shared your vision of the world, only to watch it dissolve into the air, unheard? This isn't just frustration, it's history repeating itself. Because the bitter truth is this: your voice only carries weight after the world decides you matter. Think about Nikola Tesla, a man who dreamed in lightning. He harnessed the power of alternating current, imagined wireless energy, and laid the groundwork for technologies we still rely on today. But in his time, he was called a fool, a dreamer. While Edison, the showman, took the spotlight, Tesla was left in the shadows, his notebooks filled with inventions the world wouldn't appreciate until long after his death. And what of Gregor Mendel, the humble monk who unlocked the secrets of heredity? In a small monastery garden, he bred pea plants, meticulously tracking patterns of inheritance. He wrote down laws that would one day revolutionize biology. But when he presented his findings, the scientific community shrugged. To them, he was just another eccentric with a hobby. It took decades before his work was recognized as the foundation of genetics. Even the philosophers, the ones who dared to question the deepest truths of existence, were met with scorn. Søren Kierkegaard wrote about anxiety, faith, and the individual's struggle in a world that demanded conformity. But in his lifetime, he was dismissed as a gloomy pessimist. Friedrich Nietzsche's warnings about morality, power, and the death of God were ridiculed. He died alone, his mind shattered, his books ignored. And yet today, universities teach their words as gospel. Why does this happen? Why must genius so often go unrecognized until it's too late? Because society doesn't reward vision, it rewards validation. An unknown voice is a threat. A famous voice is a revelation. Vincent van Gogh sold one painting in his entire life. Just one. He lived in poverty, battling madness, writing letters to his brother about the colors he saw, colors no one else could understand. And when he died, his work was stuffed in attics, given away, forgotten. Today, his paintings sell for hundreds of millions. Franz Kafka, the literary prophet of alienation, begged his best friend to burn all his unpublished manuscripts. He was convinced his words were worthless. His friend refused, and because of that betrayal, we have the trial, the metamorphosis, stories that define modern existential dread. So if you're speaking into the void today, if your ideas feel like whispers against a hurricane, remember this: the world doesn't decide what's true. It only decides when to believe it. History's greatest minds were first ignored, then worshipped. First mocked, then memorized. So write your book, paint your vision, build your machine, speak your truth. Because one day, maybe long after you're gone, the world will finally pause and listen. The isolation of deep thinkers isn't accidental, it's biological. When faced with someone who exposes uncomfortable truths, the average brain reacts with the same primal fear circuitry used to detect physical threats. Neuroimaging studies show heightened amygdala activity when conventional thinkers encounter radical ideas. This isn't intellectual disagreement, it's limbic panic. The brain literally processes challenging thoughts as existential threats. Watch what happens when a deep thinker speaks in a group. Pupils dilate, skin conductance spikes. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational thought, gets flooded with inhibitory signals. This explains why groups turn hostile when confronted with uncomfortable truths. It's not conscious rejection, it's neurological self-defense. Research from the Max Planck Institute reveals why conversations suddenly shift when deep thinkers speak. The anterior cingulate cortex, the brain's conflict monitor, triggers avoidance behaviors when core beliefs are challenged. Changing the subject isn't rudeness. It's the brain executing emergency protocols. Stanford's social neuroscience lab found something darker. When deep thinkers speak in groups, listeners show increased activity in the ventral striatum, the same region activated during tribal bonding. The rejection isn't intellectual, it's tribal. The group unconsciously unites against the perceived threat. This explains the historical pattern. From Socrates to Galileo to modern whistleblowers, the mechanism remains identical. The brain defends its constructed reality with the same intensity as it defends physical survival. The more vital the lie, the more violent the rejection. Deep thinkers aren't rejected for being wrong. They're rejected for being dangerous, not to bodies, but to worldviews. The isolation isn't personal failure, it's neurological inevitability. The mind that sees through illusions will always be exiled by those who live by them. This isn't tragedy, it's neurology. When you understand the machinery of rejection, you stop seeking approval from those wired to fear you. The deep thinker's path was never meant to be crowded. The moment you achieve something meaningful, you'll notice something perverse. Instead of applause, you get scrutiny. For every 100 good deeds you do, they'll ignore 99 and hyper-focus on that single misstep. This isn't coincidence. It's cognitive warfare. Their minds aren't wired to appreciate, they're programmed to negate. This phenomenon has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their psychological limitations. When faced with someone they can't match, their subconscious plays a brutal game. If they can't rise to your level, they'll drag you down to theirs. This explains the Dunning-Kruger effect in action, where the least competent individuals paradoxically demonstrate the most confidence in their ignorance. Mediocre minds become vocal critics precisely because they lack the self-awareness to recognize their own shortcomings. Your depth threatens their delusion of adequacy, which is why the fiercest critics are often those with the least accomplishments. They don't resent your failures. They despise your very attempt at excellence. Look at modern fame's cruel cycle. KB Lame rose through silent reactions only to be hated for doing nothing. Mr. Beast gained admiration for philanthropy, then faced backlash when his human flaws surfaced. SSS Sniperwolf was celebrated, exposed, then condemned for being exactly what audiences initially demanded. This pattern reveals society's uncomfortable truth. We don't truly want greatness, we crave comfortable mediocrity. We elevate people just to tear them down because their success holds up a mirror to our own stagnation. This is the superiority complex of inferior minds, those who crave unearned dominance. When you succeed where they haven't, they don't admire, they seethe. Their criticism masquerades as concern while actually serving as social equalization. You'll be called arrogant for confidence, fake for consistency, lucky for skill, all because acknowledging your merit would force them to confront their inadequacy. But here's the hidden power in this dynamic. When you're hated without cause, you've become a walking Rorschach test for others' insecurities. Their discomfort becomes your validation. While weak minds require constant praise to sustain their fragile egos, you transform criticism into evolution. Every insult becomes feedback. Every dismissal turns to fuel. Every hater serves as proof you're breaking boundaries. The masses don't fear truth itself. They fear what truth exposes about themselves. This is why thinkers and creators ultimately prevail, not despite the resistance, but because of it. The system wants compliance, but history remembers those who refuse to dilute their vision to accommodate small minds. Your detractors reveal more about their limitations than your own, and in that revelation lies your ultimate advantage. This doesn't mean you're inherently superior and others inferior. That's a dangerous oversimplification. Their brains simply operate differently, wired for comfort rather than truth, for simplicity over complexity. This distinction isn't about establishing hierarchy, but recognizing fundamental differences in awareness. Should you ever feel that surge of superiority, should you grow too comfortable with that self-image, exercise caution. You might be becoming exactly what we've been criticizing. There are always trade-offs. Ignorance offers blissful comfort at the cost of living in denial, while heightened awareness brings painful truths with its clarity. History's greatest minds demonstrate this cruel paradox. Socrates executed for corrupting youth with truth, Van Gogh seeing colors invisible to others yet dying in obscurity, Tesla outmaneuvered by lesser minds despite illuminating the future, Nietzsche collapsing into madness after exposing society's illusions. These weren't just thinkers, but casualties in humanity's war against uncomfortable truths. The deeper your understanding, the heavier your burden grows. The clearer your vision, the lonelier your path becomes. This isn't about superiority, but about conscious choice. between the fleeting comfort of ignorance and the painful liberation of truth. While ignorance may be blissful, it's ultimately fragile. While awareness may be torturous, it's undeniably real. The true tragedy of intelligence lies not in imagined superiority, but in its inevitable isolation. Yet paradoxically, this very isolation has propelled all meaningful human progress. Once gained, awareness cannot be surrendered, making the enlightened forever responsible for seeing what others refuse to acknowledge and speaking truths others refuse to hear. The question isn't who stands higher, but who is willing to bear the weight of reality's unflinching gaze.